that I am right now. But thing is that I said, yeah, thanks. But I said to myself, how can I get their attention so they can pay attention to me? I mean, their attention, so hey, I'm an engineer too, I'm a musician, I can do the sessions and all for those guys. Well, I had a dream, I mean, really, literally a dream at 4 o'clock in the morning, boom, a MIDI book in Espanol, in Spanish. I did my research. See, I'm not a writer, I'm an engineer. Oh, how do you say it? I'm not a writer, I'm a lover, not a writer, you know, whatever. Anyway, that's how I broke in. And I started writing. I got my Macintosh, you know, I was writing after work and all these things. At that time I was designing MIDI, the circuitry on MIDI, and I was using MIDI as well. The thing is that I wasn't a writer, and I just wanted these guys to show a book to the world that this is Chilitos, man, I can do the job too, and I want to work with you. That was my dream. Of course, when I finished the book, because nobody paid me for that, I did it after work, many hours. No publishers wanted to publish my books, any of them. I was so down until one day, and this is the funniest thing. When people, earlier we were talking about how do you knock the doors, how do you get your product out? Well, for me, it was a 4th of July party on a swimming pool where we were hanging out. We was working for Alice's. The president of Alice's said, hey, Chilitos, you know, I heard that you're doing a MIDI book in Spanish. That's great. I said, well, yeah, but nobody wants it. Why don't we do it? I said, what do you mean? Alice's is a publishing company, but we can start with you. That was my break. To get into the industry, now being a designer, working for Oberheim, all those things got me into the how do you say it, the major leagues. People hire me now for sessions, for whatever. And that's how you get in. When you have your dream, you have to be creative in sense of try to find what people have not done. Somebody said over there. And nobody had MIDI in Spanish. So that's how my way to get in. So you always have to find somehow to get in.
Christine, may I?
Please, John.
I was talking about a year ago to a guy called Bob Clearmountain. Bob's one of the biggest guys in the industry for the mixing stage of music. I don't know if there's anyone better than him. It's subjective, but great guy. He got his start literally, doing coffee runs. He just stuck to his guns. He believed in it, had an intrinsic talent. I mean, he is now like one of the go-to guys, like the Stones, Springsteen. I was there, and James Taylor was in there doing the final mix. It's just off the charts, and I think if he was here today, he'd tell you what I would agree with him. It's like persistence. If you believe in it, if you've got your heart into something, just stick with it. You're going to get doors slammed in your face, no matter where you go in life and in any aspect of life. But in the music industry, more so, because it's a pretty cool gig. If you can land the right job in the music industry, it's better than working for a living. Believe me, it's hard, but it's worth sticking with. If you believe in it, I honestly believe you may not reach for the stars and reach for the moon and maybe grab a star on the way down, but just go for it. Just absolutely apply yourself, give yourself 101% constantly, and don't take no for an answer.
Can I add? And sometimes I think when you do something well, such as everyone at the panel, minus myself, that we perhaps take for granted that we do it well. And so I just want to add that when I think of people wanting to do something, especially on the entrepreneurship level, you must have a passion for it, as we keep reiterating, but you should also be good at it. And so being good at it sometimes requires feedback, and not that you should rely on everyone's feedback, but if you do something and people constantly don't like it, then I don't know if you'll be successful at that. So that is one thing that's important. And the other thing I would emphasize is, in addition to passion and skill, which you can develop, you should have a mentor. And I think that's key in any sense, is to have that mentor to guide you along the way. Yeah, that's it.
Cynthia.
I'd like to know from the audience, from a show of hands, how many people are looking for a job now? Are you ready to be out in the workforce? And how many people are interested in starting some kind of small business, selling some of your creative work, doing something like that? You're entrepreneurial in some sense? Excellent. I wanted to follow up on what Stephen said about partnering and what resources are available for you to help you move forward in those kinds of dreams. One of the things you might already know about is that there's a system in California called the Small Business Development Centers. And you've got one connected with Miracosta College. They're scattered throughout the state. And there are places you can go with your creative ideas and your product and your service and get help in figuring out how to get that product to market. So you might want to take advantage of that. There are SBDCs, Small Business Development Centers, and there's one with this college. And I'd like to broaden the discussion a little bit about what kinds of jobs are available now, what kinds of things you can get into. If you've got a dream that you're going to be following and a passion and something that you do very well, but you might also want to get your foot in the door in some way to get into the industry. And some of the things that are opening up right now that you might not have thought about. Audio production is usually the piece that's missing in another production. It's the sweet spot that people need somebody really professional. You can get away with not great video, but you've got to have great audio to get something wonderful, to get something emotional. In the film industry right now, there's a huge shift towards small-scale production, less expensive. The tools have shifted completely. You no longer need the huge studios. Everything is a garage quality now. Garage environment. You can buy on yourself.
Your car is never in your garage anymore.
Yeah. You can easily affordable your own production level equipment. That's never been true in the history of music and the history of film. It's a huge shift, and that makes great opportunity for you. In video production, the audio element, the audio component, sound and music for video for the web. There is a huge market for that. Everybody needs some video on their website now. And the audio partner with that team is a critical player in that group. The game industry, this is an enormous shift that's happening. There are innovations, technological innovations that are bringing surround sound into three-dimensional environments. That's an incredible transition, an incredible change, and there's huge opportunity there for the sound designers, the storyboarding of the sound elements, the production, the composing, as well as the technical aspect. So there's lots of opportunities to be thinking about in addition to theater and performance.
Can I just say, with my company, I have more apprenticeships available for audio for video, especially sound design. We have computers with our 14,000 sound effects on them that I give to people to use, and you take the sound effects. I don't give them to you, but you get to, and you have to lay out audio tracks to video or to underneath books that we read. So apprenticeships and are my work. I really need those kind of people, and the audio for business. I just want to back that up. There's a lot of work in that area.
Wes.
I was just going to add too. A lot of people are talking about apprenticeships and internships and all of those kinds of things. And for a lot of you, if you can, while you're, your expenses are low, maybe you're living at home or you're, able to be a student. It's only going to get more and more difficult as you get out into the world, and then you're working, and then you're struggling working at Starbucks to be able to be a musician, or trying to be a coffee runner at a studio or whatever. If you can afford to be at home and save money, do those internships now. Do the part that you can get away with not having to pay for rent and pay for all of those things now while you're at home, because it's only going to get more and more difficult. So if you can, make the time to do that now. As busy as you think you are, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to get more busy, and it's going to become more and more difficult. So do it as soon as you can.
It's obvious that the music industry is not a normal business.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have, it's definitely an abnormal existence in a lot of respects. But there are some normal aspects to this. When I say normal, I'm talking about what's typical for industry. And the music products industry represents a kind of a normal part of the industry. It's a kind of a seamless way to meld together sales, marketing, and a love for music. Do any of you have any experiences in the music products industry that you'd like to share about how you've taken your glamorized lifestyle and all of a sudden become a normal person?
That's the story of my life, really, isn't it? Yeah, mild rock and roll star some years ago, and now I schlep around products to retailers. I work with a lot of major manufacturers like Moog Electronics, EMG Pickups, Hofner Guitars, and a host of others. At one point when we had the earlier talk was I brought up if you want to be in the industry, be in the industry. If you can't automatically arrive at your goal of being a rock star, maybe go work as a sales guy in a retail environment or do something to stay in the industry, keep your mind set on music. But it's all good, you know. I mean, just being around music is a beautiful thing. And I had a great career, and I still play. I'm still active, and you know, I just stopped the touring aspect. And when I decided I wanted to get back into it, people were going, "Who are you? We don't know you anymore." But that would be, you know, one of my pieces of advice, for what it's worth, is that just be in the industry, get in any capacity you possibly can, and just filter your way through to where you want to be. But don't do something else. I mean, you got to live, you got to pay your bills. But do something, if you possibly can, in the industry, and then really concentrate on getting to where you want to be. But don't do it the other way around like me. Be a musician and kind of slide off the face of the earth.
Jeff.
Well, I have been a lifelong musician, and it's all I've ever done for a living, but I've had to rely or got to rely on the help of my sponsors because I endorse products. Yamaha just came out with a new guitar, and they brought in just a handful of guys to help them to evaluate the instruments and decide what they needed to change. And they just came out with the prototypes last week, and I have one of these prototypes now. And there's people. Yamaha is the largest instrument manufacturer in the world. And they're the largest music company. And as a musician it's all I've done for a living. I've played gigantic concerts for 20,000 people, and I've played little things for handfuls of people, and it's been like that my whole life. But to me, it's like incredibly attractive if Yamaha said to me, and there are people working for Yamaha who do this, said, well, how would you like to just go out and demo these instruments? They've actually asked me to do that, and just go around and demo these instruments, and all of a sudden, you're going to have a guaranteed income.
Reliable
which I've
paycheck,
never had.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, a guaranteed income demonstrating these instruments around the world. And you can still do your concerts and make records, but you got a guaranteed income. And I met a guy at the last NAMM show who's a piano player. He's incredible. He's really great. And I thought, wow, what a talented artist. I wonder what kind of a career he has. He says, I don't have time for a career. I just demo for Yamaha. Yeah. And he makes a fortune, and he has a great, I mean, it's a toss-up. I don't think I wouldn't want to sacrifice my career to just do that. But boy, that certainly is nice to have that kind of income.
Talking about a predictable income?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that the music industry is not predictable?
Yeah. Well, you can imagine, I've never had an employer. I've never had health insurance that I didn't pay for. I've never had a retirement that I didn't put money into. I've never had, you're self-employed. I've had record deals. I have managers and agents and publicists and all this stuff, but nobody gives me anything. I'm still an independent contractor, and generally, I mean, the musicians union. Name another union where like 90% of their members are unemployed.
We have a theater next door that we'd like to speak with you about. What do you advise to people who can't take rejection, insecurity, unpredictability,
Get a different profession.
Get a dog.
but yet they want to be on stage and be a star?
Forget it.
Delusional.
Karaoke. Karaoke.
There's a lot of rejection in karaoke.
Rock band.
Be a rough room out there.
Yeah, therapy.
No, this is an erratic lifestyle that we all lead here. How does
I'd
anybody
like
stay?
to pitch in and try and answer that for you a little bit, if I may.
How do we stay stable?
Well, the first thing is if you want to be in the entertainment industry, hang out, live with people, go meet people who are in the entertainment industry. Even if they're playing in a club or playing in a restaurant and have got a day job, they lead you to where they're going and where these people who have the same desire inside themselves. You may be watching a classical concert player, and yet you may inwardly only be interested in playing the blues. But the common bond of music, the common bond of being able to express yourself will lead you if you have the courage to follow it. So you hang out with people who are in the entertainment industry and you widen your circle. You keep widening. Eventually you get there.
Because
Education isn't the most glamorous job, but it's extremely stable and satisfying and peaceful, and you can tour in the summers and your family gets a paycheck while you're away. So it's not what all people think, but definitely, you're around students who are the most cutting-edge thinkers. They're light years ahead. When I think of publications, people ask, well, how do you keep up to date? I say, my students give me news on the hour of what's going on and where it's going on. So I feel extremely fortunate. I've never been more surrounded by diverse musical knowledge in my life. And I get free products, free books. I get to meet incredible people. And like I said, I have weekends, evenings, and summers to tour. It's not totally glamorous, and you may not be able to reach rock star lifestyle, but if you love music and you want stability, it is an option.
Laura, then Donna, please.
Well, two things. Two things. One is, in talking education, the educational system for music now is amazing. I mean, it used to be you'd go to conservatory or maybe Berkeley, or that was kind of it. So just the fact that you could be here at Miracosta, and I know that you guys have, amazing things, an amazing studio. Jenny's told me a lot. So and it's in and of itself is amazing, which puts you way ahead of where at least I could certainly say I was. It's just I didn't have access to anything like that when I was young. So you have that, and in adding to what he said, there are apprenticeships and internships, but you should create your own internships. I mean, if you find someone, you love what they do, in a nice way, be persistent, hound them, and follow them around if they'll let you. I mean, you can make your own situations, and if you've got the skills behind you, they'll be happy to have you around. Then you can maybe, when they're overloaded, say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? I mean, what's wonderful and terrible about music is there is no straight path, so you can make your own. And if you're creative in just how you go about getting work, there's just work everywhere, and you can network, meet more and more people, and it's just, computers in a way have nothing to do with it. It's still all about people and who you know, but you can make those connections. You don't have to be born with them or be related to them, or you can make things happen.
Donna.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on a couple of different things, and going back to what Vika said, I think it was Vika who said something about, if you're not good, at some point you're going to have to just be honest with yourself and maybe realize that you're not going to be the one person on stage reaching superstar status. I think it also comes back to you got to be honest with yourself about what you can handle in your life. I know you can get any number of touring stories about that's a very, very difficult life. I had to be honest with myself. I love variety in my life, but it made more sense for me to be in a facility and have all the wonderful shows come to me than to try to go out on the road. I did a couple of small tours, and I'm not cut out for that kind of life, so I was honest with myself. The other thing is getting back to, maybe you've decided you're not going to be a musician for a living, or you need to supplement it. Some of the best lighting people I've ever had are musicians. And that goes a little bit against the grain. You would think audio, but I've had some wonderful lighting people, and I think it comes back to the fact that they have a sense of of beat and rhythm when we're doing concerts, for instance. They also understand what the musicians are trying to create on stage, and they're able to support that with the lighting. So I've always found it very interesting that the musicians seem to come in and deal with lights very well. I also do want to put in a plug for the internship program at the California Center for the Arts. I don't know how much time we have today, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to talk about it, but I do have information about it out at the table, and we're happy to talk to you about it afterward.
Also, we've seen a big shift in the business industry with the world becoming increasingly flat. In the next 5 years, we're going to have more MBA graduates out of India than we will have college graduates in the U.S. And so there's no shortage of MBAs, but what we're seeing is that a lot of people are starting to look for people with MFAs, Masters of Fine Arts degrees, to come in and work with business because of their skills with synthesis, being able to take a bunch of different elements and bring them together in new and exciting ways. So, there's always the business side of the house that is actually really looking at artists and creative types to bring into the fold to make their businesses creative and different and exciting.
Very refreshing. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, just to back up a little bit about products and making money with products and things. There's a whole aspect of music and sound that really gets overlooked a lot, and that's the acoustical aspect. I came in late, sorry. I have Polona Sound and Acoustics. We do acoustical architecture and design production facilities, et cetera. And for example, you look around here, these devices that are holding the lights, that has an acoustical purpose. Somebody designed that and is marketing and manufacturing that. I started my company by building acoustical devices for my own studio as a producer engineer that happened to work really well. I needed something that would really clean up the low frequency, so for 3 years I built these prototypes, got something that really worked. Everybody wanted it. I ended up patenting it and marketing it, and it was just basically built with a bunch of stuff from Home Depot the first time around. What that does as far as a career opportunity for you when you start looking at acoustical architectural products and design is that it takes you not only within the music community and keeps you working around studios and concerts and things like that, but if you get involved designing or developing or repping acoustical devices or products, things like that, it also takes you out into the entire world of acoustical architecture, which gets into conference rooms, and it's a multi-million-dollar industry, and it's still related to sound, it's still related to music. You end up working with artists that maybe you never would have gotten to work with as a consultant or a designer. That's how I've gotten to work on a lot of records I've worked on, was because I designed a recording studio for somebody and they realized that I write and play and can engineer. So staying inside the industry, making money, keeping your passion as a musician or an artist or whatever alive, it's one of those things. How many people in here actually looked around and realized that that's an audio product up there? Show of hands. Not too many, Just looks like something holding the light, but it's actually, I know the people who make that. They're colleagues of mine, and it's shaped and curved in a way that it'll diffuse sound in a distributed way so that there's a better experience in here acoustically. So that whole world of acoustics is as much a part of the industry as microphones and things like that.
That's a wonderful other area for people to focus in on besides music production. Yes, Wes.
I was just going to touch a little bit on how invaluable I think it is to work backwards on your goals. And if you set a goal, for example, there's a lot of artists I think that I've worked with as a producer and bass player and I'll say, okay, well, what is your ultimate goal? And then they'll say, maybe I want to be like Britney Spears, or I want to be a pop star. And then they'll give me their first song, and it's a 9-minute ballad, and the first chorus comes at 3 minutes in. I'll say, okay, well, you really need to reanalyze what your final goal is, and then make sure the things that you're doing there are kind of stepping towards that goal. And don't be afraid to reanalyze and take an honest look at that to make sure that everything that you're doing is actually going to lead you down that path somehow. And at the same time, the networking thing is, I think what everybody's saying, is the most valuable thing that you can do, because your skills are only as valuable as the people that you can share those skills with. Like at Berkeley, I knew a huge number of really, really talented people, both singer-songwriters, performers, audio engineers, different things like that. And there they actually give you a rank where you're tested, and then you get a number. For example, a friend of mine is now one of the lead audio engineers at Hanson Studios in LA. Last week he did a session with Mick Jagger and Joss Stone. He was number 170 at Berkeley. So there's only 190. So he was way down in that list, but he had really good networking skills, and he beat out everybody else in his class and was able to get that job just because he was out there, he was at coffee shops, he was volunteering his time at open mics, doing sound for them, and he just knew people. And that, you know, it doesn't necessarily matter how good you are. Yes, you have to have the skills and you have to do all those kinds of things, but more importantly, are you out there sharing those skills with people? And I think that goes for performers or audio engineers or all of those things. The more people you can share your talent with, then the more you'll know, and then the more times, you know, musicians, people, they like calling people that they know instead of just looking up bass player in a phone book. So.
Very valuable information. Thank you. It seems like there's a Mick everything. Mick Jagger, McDonald's. Thank you. Dave.
So I just want to add to that. I think that's critically important. I think you should say yes to everything. I think, you know, put yourself in every opportunity. You know, as a bass player, I was playing mostly pop bands, but I'd get sessions to do country, and I just say, wherever. Just say yes to everything. Obviously, make sure you back up. Don't just put yourself in situations where you're going to fail. But be sure you can back it up. But say yes to everything. Get yourself out there, get known, and just be ready to take wherever life throws at you. But I wanted to the other question was other industries where you can make a living and not be killed by it. Is the video games industry, while it's still relatively new, I'm fortunate at Sony we have a team of about 50 either musicians or sound designers. We have a large team between here, Santa Monica and San Francisco. We're working on maybe 15 to 20 games at any one time. We're working with some of the best writers in the film industry, never mind anything else. And we look for variety and creativity. We have an unbelievable amount of creative latitude in what we do. Typically, producers will say, here's the game, you do all the audio. And it's like, okay, and what's the budget like? Well, it's comparable to film industry now. You know, we're getting $500,000 to $1 million budgets for doing sound for video games. It's a great opportunity. It's tough to get into, but it's the same thing. You can be in